Half an hour later, I was standing on the shelf that led to the cave. Standing in front of the entrance, millions of the thoughts and images scattered throughout my brain finally started to piece themselves into the many memories I shared with Doc. The numbing realization that I never got to say a final goodbye to him chewed me up inside, as the loneliness birds nested themselves in the dark void inside of me. Each rock they lay sends me into a further state of sadness. The guilty thought of entering the cave one last time to see Doc and having a chance to say goodbye consumed my mind entirely, to the point where the rest of the memories flashing through my head became white noise in the background of this one thought. I would never be at peace with myself if I didn't get one last moment with him. I also knew that if Doc lay in the Crystal Cave of Africa, he would not have wanted me to enter. I knew my friend well, and I knew he was a man of great sensitivity. He would not want to subject me to the sight of his corpse on the platform. I could picture his frail body, cold and pale, peacefully resting on Merlin's altar, the magnificent crystal bolts of lightning frozen in time above him as they both stand in the cave for eternity. I stood at the entrance, feeding on the fractured memories I had of the cave and assuring myself that Doc would not have wanted me to enter. But in the pit of my stomach, the loneliness bird sat as a reminder that I never said goodbye to my old friend. Certainly, a man of sensitivity would understand this feeling. Doc trained me well, to be observant of not only plants and nature, but also of people. I have witnessed Doc work in mysterious ways to appeal to the people and bring them together. After all, his music brought the people of the prison together in harmony. The overwhelming silence was suddenly cut by the sound of water dripping from stalactites. As I sat there with only the sound of the water and my own breathing, a sudden chill went down my spine as a light breeze slapped my face, bringing the familiar smell of dampness. The drips came faster, one after another, crashing to the floor, screaming through the cave. The speed of the drips kept increasing to match the speed of my pounding heart. When the breeze withered, a wave of peace washed over me, giving me the unexplainable assurance of approval. With this, I gathered my courage and climbed into the chamber. Even though I have already seen the Crystal Cave of Africa, it felt different and new. The old spirit that filled the chamber with beauty seemed to be accompanied by a new unfamiliarity. The captured light within the crystal seemed to shine brighter. The chandelier of snowy white stone that once covered the tall ceiling seemed to have taken on a new beauty. The garden of calciferous structures above me grew off each other like branches of an aloe plant. Each small pool reflected another enchanted world in the crystal surrounding me. Out of the corner of my eye, the familiar massive stalactite caught my attention. I moved towards the huge natural phenomenon, and the closer I got, the sharper the memory of Doc became. Perhaps 300,000 years, maybe more. His voice was clear and awe-inspiring as the crystal that surrounds me. I continued to re-explore the cave when I caught sight of a large ledge protruding from the cave, and my stomach turned into a knot. Cold sweat trickled from my forehead, getting caught in my brow, while my hands felt suddenly clammy. Even though I couldn't see it, I knew all the color had drained from my face. I didn't have to move any closer to know exactly where Doc was in the crystal cave. With each step towards the altar, the loneliness birds dug deeper into my gut, making themselves more and more prominent. Wisps of white hair peeked out from behind the legs of the altar. I knew I'd walked far enough. I sat down in the hard calcium deposit beneath me. Each movement I made created a crunch that echoed through the cave. It just occurred to me that I came completely unprepared. What can I say to someone who has been my best friend in my worst times? How do you say goodbye to someone who has stood by you and witnessed your greatest feats? Doc was the only staple that was in my life. How do you say goodbye to a piece of yourself? Ah, it is quite simple, my boy. Death is good. It is simply a part of life. It's not saying goodbye, but instead saying, see you in a jiffy. The clarity of the thought startled me. I could hear his thick accent with every word echoed. My head spun from confusion. This is different from simply saying, see you later. I won't see him later, and I knew this was my one time to say everything, to finally release the birds. For a while, I felt nothing. No sadness, no anger, no happiness. I was numb to all emotions because once the feeling came back, I feared the pain it would bring. Ah, man, I'm not too good at this. But now, the numbness is gone. Not completely, because I never think it will all quite go away, but enough where I can live with myself. I'm sorry I wasn't here. I know you know it was your time for a while. I should have listened. I'm sorry. Hot tears rolled down my cheeks, slipping salt into my mouth between words. I wasn't planning on losing my emotions like this. The strength they hit me with was worse than any of the blows from Gideon Madoma. Each word was like an uppercut to the heart. Wonderbur. Absolutal. Isn't it just Wonderbur here? Jamon, it's magic. I am happy becoming a part of Africa, my boy. Absolutal. Do not fear the feelings, embrace them, and use them as fuel to become the welterweight champion of the world, Mr. Smarty Pants. Doc? The questioning thought that has been in the back of my mind since I entered the cave finally surfaced. The pieces all teamed together as I realized that I was simply not talking to myself. Doc, I don't know if I'm losing my mind or if you're actually here, and to be truthful, I don't think I want to know the answer. Goodbye, old friend. Suddenly, the weight that had been inside me since the death of Grandpa Chook was lifted. I felt the absence of the loneliness birds as they crumpled to dust and finally brought me peace. Doc was happy. The garden of gnarled branches above me flickered as the light trapped inside each crystal reflected the constant drip of water. With this, I knew it was my time to leave Doc to rest within Africa. As I climbed out of the kingdom of crystal onto the ledge, I felt a pinch on my finger. As I pulled my hand away, a teardrop of crimson was left surfaced on the tip of my index finger. I looked around the area for sharp rocks that could possibly be behind it, and then I saw it, a dark stripe of some sort of mineral sediment. Poking out of the soft soil was the point of the blade of Doc's Joseph Rogers pocket knife.